Hello, my name is Marnie Makaborski. I'm an associate trainer with Art2Ride. Here we have a lesson I'm teaching with Claudia and her horse Winchester. Winchester is a 5-year-old Dutch harness horse cross. Both him and Claudia have been training with me for only a few months now. So both being new to this, I think they are doing a fantastic job. Starting Winnie's training, he was extremely high-headed and hollow, very nervous and untrusting to people. He did not like us on his right side, so that alone was a challenge we had to overcome for our work in hand sessions. He is still in the reactive phase, I like to call it, instead of being responsive, meaning he tends to overreact to the aids instead of staying calm and thinking first and responding. So we make sure that we're not asking for too much too soon because it sets him off and he gets very nervous. And once he gets into that, it's very hard to refocus him again, especially for such a young horse with the trust issues that he has. It's vital that we take our time and let him develop physically and mentally. Not to mention, he is a very big, strong horse, so staying conscious of just asking enough and not crossing that line is very important for us right now. I'm explaining to Claudia to keep Winchester on a smaller circle until she feels and sees that his inside hind leg start to come towards the center of his belly as he steps forward. This is what we will initiate the correct stretch we are looking for. As you can see, Winchester continuously attempts this, but it's just not steady and comfortable enough to keep it there. However, for us, in this phase of his training, we're very happy with him if he'll carry his head below his withers. When he starts to raise his head and neck, I tell Claudia to soften him in the bridle by just squeezing the inside rein until she feels him give to her, and then she releases to the weight of the rein. I have her stay on a smaller circle until he stretches, and then she can start to make that circle bigger, but to bring him back to a smaller circle when he starts to come up again, and if softening him doesn't send him back down into the stretch first. So that's better there. I think his activity level is fine. There's definitely a fine line with him from going at this pace and then asking a little more. He just gets too choppy and his legs get too fast. So for him, activity here is fine. Once we push a little more, it just falls apart. There, she could be asking for a little more yield from his hindquarters. There he goes. That's better. Nice. And you can see when he does drop his head, his legs start to slow and he gets longer strides. As soon as his head comes up, they start to get a little too choppy and fast, short-strided. We have also been working on our leg yields. Claudia has a tendency to want to slow down and Winchester wants to speed up. That one wasn't too bad though. I explained to her that if he needs to speed up a bit, that's okay, as long as it doesn't turn into a race between the two of them. And if she feels like that is happening, just to bring him back into a smaller circle to slow his legs rather than to try to pull back on the reins. Like many horses, once you start pulling or holding the reins for an extended period of time, they learn to pull back on you, which makes them heavy in your hands and unresponsive to your rein aids. Here I'm explaining again to start small. Wait until his strides lengthen and his neck stretches, and then you can follow it out to a larger circle. So she's doing a good job here by just periodically just slowing her walk down and making him come to her. He does have a tendency to want to pull you to the outside of the circle, which she needs to counter that with asking that hind end to move away. Trying to juggle the contact and keep it. I know how difficult it is on the off side of the horse to do this. It's something we all need to get used to. But she's doing a great job. Like I said, she's very new to this work as well, but is absolutely loving it. That's better. Comes right back up. She's going to have to soften. And she goes into a leg yield there. You can see how she wants to slow down, and if she kept up with him a little bit more, he may have been able to stretch a little better. It looked a little restricting. She tries again on this side. Better with keeping up on him there. A little bit loss of contact, so she just pulls him back onto a smaller circle here to get him stretching again. Our lunge work. So Win had never been lunged before a few months ago, but he did pick it up rather quickly. He can stay out on the end of the line, but Claudia still needs to stay pretty close to him, which you'll see that I ask her to get even closer often. He still needs to be worked in kind of a modified work in hand style with the lunge line. We do mostly walk, although we do play with the trot every session to see where he's at. I have Claudia really focus on keeping the contact through the line and doing the same technique of softening him with the squeeze of her hand when he comes up. Of course, we would definitely want him to get deeper in the stretch, but we do get some good moments out of him, and that's what we will build on. Like I said, just for a horse learning that he could move his legs with his pole below his withers is a huge accomplishment for him. That's looking better there. Nice and relaxed. Good stretching moments. I think she just needs to be a little bit quicker with her aids to send him right back down. By the time she asks, he's kind of already up in the air and slowing down. That's better. So we do attempt the trot. Now, we didn't get a quality stretch in the walk, so we can't expect the trot to look any better, but sometimes trotting a few laps will help with some hind end impulsion that we can use when we go back to the walk. So nothing great here. We don't do too much of this. And looking back, I would have had her get a little closer and walk with him a little bigger, so she could have more control of his front and hind end for a better stretch. She just doesn't quite get anywhere with him with this. But he does try to attempt. So we just go right back to the walk. Again, I would have had her get a little bit closer. This is his more difficult direction on the lunge. At least this day it was. Here we are focusing on keeping him out on the end of the line with contact, getting him to step under so he stretches. Claudia starts to lose his attention this direction a bit, so she asks him repeatedly to refocus. So you'll see that he wants to trot off a few times. When this happens, Claudia needs to stop walking to bring him back down to the walk. If she stops her feet, it will bring Win on a smaller circle without Claudia having to interrupt his front end by pulling him in with the line. We are still teaching him that by using the whip toward his belly where your leg would go, it means to yield away from it, not just to go faster. Again, I would have had her get closer to him to establish getting him in a proper shoulder fore position going around here, asking the hindquarters to yield a little bit better to get that stretch. Then she could start to give him more line. For me, the connection is just a little too inconsistent, so by shortening that line and getting closer, she'll have a steadier contact, which would result in a steadier stretch. So that was a good conversation she had there. She was asking him to yield. He wanted to speed up. She stopped her body. He went down into a deeper stretch for a moment. That series of events right there, the series of aids, is exactly what I would have done again right after he popped his head up there to try and get a deeper stretch out of him. So just repeat that, exactly that, every time you lose it. Our trot attempt, this direction doesn't have much value. This is how he wants to move all the time. High-headed, running, hollow. You see, he wants to carry himself in that incorrect posture, so he starts to get a little spooky and nervous. And because he still has a tendency to react this way sometimes, we have not used a shambone or side reins on him. I just don't really trust him enough yet. So I have Claudia stick with it a little bit while longer to regain his focus and relaxation. And then when she does, she get him to settle and stretch. Even for a brief moment, she can stop. So right about there. There is probably where I would have ended it. She keeps going a little bit longer. But you can see what a beautiful mover he's going to be once he learns how to hold himself properly and work over his back. And that's it. So this is Marnie from Art2Ride. Thank you for watching.